Hello, I'm Stephen Louchheim, CEO of the Tallahassee Board of Realtors, and welcome to the beautiful Caters Technology Studio, Midtown Tallahassee. This is the CEO update, and I have a wonderful, really special guest, Shannon McGahn, who is the Chief Advocacy Officer for the National Association of Realtors. And Shannon, I so appreciate you coming and joining me.
Stephen, thank you for the invitation. Next time it should be in person. Would love to visit you in Tallahassee.
Oh, we would love that. And I feel bad because I kind of cornered Shannon when she was in another conversation when I saw her a couple weeks ago and asked her, and I guess she felt like she had to say yes. So Shannon, just introduce yourself just for a few minutes, and then we just have a few things we want to talk about.
Sure. First off, I never have to say yes. I wanted to, especially when you brought up President Circle and the Advocacy Scoop. So I'm happy to talk about both of those things and more.
Absolutely.
But hi, I'm Shannon McGahn, the Chief Advocacy Officer for the National Association of Realtors. I have been with NAR for a little over 7 years now. And prior to joining this esteemed organization, I spent close to 20 years working on or around Capitol Hill for several members of Congress, and ran a congressional committee, worked in a personal office, leadership office, district office, campaign. So very robust political career, and also spent some time at the Treasury Department back in 2017, and am very eager to continue this work with you all and chat with you today, Stephen.
Well, great, Shannon. Yeah, you have a lot of experience. So that's awesome, and we really get a lot of out of experience. I really enjoy your speaking at the conferences when I hear you, and I do enjoy Advocacy Scoop, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I think of the government advocacy as probably the least sexy of the things we do in the association world, but I really think it's the most important thing we do, because no one is going to advocate for your profession other than your profession. And so what you do is really important to the members. And that's why I wanted to have you on. And so we'll just get going here. But you can tell us what is the advocacy? What does advocacy do? What does NAR advocacy do?
Sure. So NAR Advocacy is your voice in Washington, D.C. and around the country, where we work with local and state associations to make sure that we're protecting home ownership and ensuring that realtors have the ability to do their business in a strong and stable housing market. So in DC, I oversee a team of about 60 folks who are working day in and day out with the administration, with Congress, with regulators on everything from housing supply, housing affordability issues, tax policy, which we'll get into, access to credit, environmental and land use issues. Everything comes up. So mentioned all of this work that I've done on Capitol Hill. I started working on the Hill in the late 1900s, and I've worked with several folks. And I can tell you, at what we do at NAR, we are working with every single committee in Congress. This is not a special interest group. This is something that everything that we're working on is going to impact anyone who wants a roof over their head. And it's very important work. It also is important that we have members in every zip code, and that we're seeing firsthand how policy is going to impact homeownership and the communities that you're serving. So this isn't just about creating that policy, reacting to policy. This is about shaping what that policy is, hearing from folks who are working day in and day out within this profession, and making sure that your voice is strong and heard in the Capitol. We do all of this for about 19 cents a day. That's how much our a member pays for the advocacy portion of those dues. And with that 19 cents a day, we're delivering trillions of dollars of value to the real estate economy.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into some specifics, but I did not realize there were 60 folks. I hear some of them speak at different conferences, and one thing I'm really impressed with, besides you, is the staff that you have. They are really knowledgeable. They seem to have great experience in governmental affairs.
It is such a pleasure to work with this team. We have subject matter experts who help to analyze public policy, create it, work with all of our policy committees. We have an amazing government advocacy team, which others refer to as the lobbying team, who are on the Hill day in and day out, making sure that those policies are being communicated at the highest levels. We have our advocacy communications team that also works with all of our community programs and grants and outreach and events and putting these all together. And then, of course, it's an election year, so I can't say enough about our political team. That's one of the largest parts of the advocacy group that works on all of our federal races, works with our PAC, and then also works with our state and local associations on independent expenditures, issues mobilization campaigns, all of our government affairs directors around the country. So it keeps us very busy. And my job is to make sure that we are hiring the best talent and get out of their way and make sure that we are delivering results for all of our members.
Yep, let them do their job. That's absolutely right. Okay, so since we talked about this, let's be specific. What are some recent wins that NAR has enjoyed and the Realtors membership has enjoyed?
Sure. So because I will run through all of this faster than I should, I should have started with please visit advocacyimpact.realtor, where you can find the wins. You can find all of the issues that we're working on. That includes wins over the past several decades, the past year, and then what we've been working on this Congress alone. So over the past year, we've delivered some real results, especially when it comes to the tax reform bill that was signed into law last July. Some of the key provisions in there were protecting the mortgage interest deduction and making that permanent, protecting 1031 like-kind exchange, which is always mentioned as a potential pay for on the chopping block that could result in less investment in real estate. So we were very, very proactive in ensuring that 1031 would remain permanent in this bill. Also looking at things like the 20% small business deduction, and keeping that in there. And we also secured a 400% increase, a 4 times increase in the SALT cap that helps to expand incentives for when you're itemizing your taxes to make sure that your state and local taxes are included in there. So there are some communities in Florida that are really impacted by that. It's not state by state. Some folks say that's a blue state versus red state. It's anywhere where you have high property taxes that you're going to see that SALT cap is important. So these aren't just abstract policy wins. These are direct impacts that affect affordability, investment, the ability for realtors to serve their clients. On SALT, I've been monitoring social media and the number of folks who are saying, hey, wait a second, make sure when you're filing your taxes this year that you're itemizing because I just got a huge refund thanks to SALT. So those are important real world impact that we're seeing. We also have work that is currently moving, like the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. So this is one of the most significant bipartisan pieces of housing legislation that I have seen in my 25 years in DC. Realtors, we have supported this since its introduction. There were kind of 2 different bills, one moving in the House and one moving in the Senate, and they were somewhat combined. And so the bill had already passed the House and then went through the Senate. So now they're looking at whether or not they do a conference committee or whether or not they can come to some sort of 4 corners agreement. But what I think folks really need to know is that this reflects a major shift in Washington, that we're seeing broad bipartisan agreement, and it's not on any other issue but housing. And this is something that has been years in the works. The saying is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Not only were we at the table, we helped set the table for this conversation over years of addressing smaller pieces of legislation that could potentially impact removing regulatory barriers, streamlining the federal programs and processes that could clog up some of these permits and regulations impacting development of new housing, things like the ability to work more with manufactured homes. So these are things that we've been moving forward, engaging with lawmakers. We did a call for action on both the House and the Senate bill and had over 90% success rate within hours of launching that call for action. Thanks, Florida. I think you guys had a 100% success rate. And so as this continues through Congress and with the White House, where President Trump has spoken about this several times over, that he wants to make sure that this is getting over the finish line, that we're working on things like the institutional investor piece of this, which is an area that the White House has proposed policy that's in the bill. We have different policy that we're advocating for as it continues through the process. But overall, this is a bill that includes many key provisions that we've supported, and we're excited to see this move.
Well, that sounds awesome. And going back a little bit to the mortgage interest deduction, I don't think people realize that was not permanently in the law.
It was not permanent. And, there's no such thing as permanency in politics,
Right.
because anytime that something can be used to pay for another priority, folks will look for it. But when you do make something permanent, that means that the scoring, the budgetary process has to assume that that's going to be in perpetuity. So it was a
Okay.
very key distinction, and it's a big win. And it's also a big win when that was potentially something that could have been eliminated to pay for other priorities.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the things that, and I hear this from like our Florida delegation of lobbyists. It's not always the things you get. It's what's probably more impactful is the things you stop, and that gets less headlines, but maybe even more important. Do you have some things like that you can tell us about?
That is brilliant counsel, and that is absolutely true. So it's not just the things that that Congress votes on and that become law. It's what you keep from becoming law that could be very damaging to housing and to the real estate economy. So Evan Lydiard, who runs all of our tax policy on our team and has forgotten more than I will ever know about tax policy. So I would highly recommend following all of his work. Created this list of what he calls the ugly 11. These were 11 potential tax hikes over the past several years that policymakers have been looking to potentially implement as part of their budget, as part of reconciliation.
Right.
And so I said, Evan, can you pull together if those ugly 11 that we have successfully lobbied against, things like the elimination of 1031 like-kind exchange, or changes to the death tax, and increasing taxes on real estate transactions, that if we had not succeeded in stopping that ugly 11, how much money in new taxes would have been created over that 10-year window. So we pulled all of this together, and the number is $2.3 trillion.
Oh my gosh.
Trillion with a T, of new taxes that were prevented by defeating those ugly 11 tax proposals. So those policies, if they were enacted, would have made it more expensive to buy, sell, invest. And we were able to navigate this by talking to lawmakers early on in the process, back in 2017 when they were working on this tax bill. And again, here this past year. There's a reason why major tax reform only happens every few decades. It's very difficult to do. And anytime you change one tax provision, you have to look for other ways to pay for it in parts of the budget, and it becomes a really complicated and messy process. So they use reconciliation to do that. And we got in early, making sure that on both sides of the Capitol, both sides of the aisle, folks understood things like 1031 actually helps to provide more investment into real estate, and is the fair way of ensuring that folks aren't unnecessarily paying a hefty tax penalty while they're trying to sell a home and purchase new property. So when that came to the markup of that bill, not only was eliminating 1031 defeated, it didn't even come up, because everyone agreed that's not the type of proposal that we need right now, and that's not going to help develop more affordable homes. So those are the types of issues that we're working on behind the scenes and in front of the scenes every day, and making sure that we're not seeing bad policies happen. The other thing that is worth noting is that there is no such thing as a local, state, or federal housing policy. Anything that's happening within Tallahassee, that's happening with Florida, could be one committee markup amendment away from making it into federal policy. So what is incredibly important is our work with our local and state associations to identify best practices and those good policies that we want to help spread across the country, or to ensure there's some sort of national policy, or to defeat things like misguided rent control policies, or barriers to permitting and regulatory issues that are impacting housing that are oftentimes happening at the local level. So we appreciate all of the help and being proactive that we get from you guys.
Yeah, and I was able to serve on the state and local issues mobilization committee for a few years. That was the most interesting committee I've ever been on for NAR. The things that are coming from other states that NAR is proactively helping squash is amazing. One thing, we didn't talk about this in advance, but I know you'll be right on this, is the real estate caucus. Tell us about that, because that has key impacts on passing great legislation and preventing bad legislation.
Oh, absolutely. So, for the last several years, we've been talking about there are so many of members of Congress who have a background in housing. Maybe they were a realtor, maybe they worked in development, or maybe they just have a passion for it and an interest in it. But they may not be on the committees that are handling housing policy the most. And we would have these conversations. Say, could we develop some sort of a caucus where we can have a bipartisan group of members who can get together and we can educate their staff, educate the members on things that are happening in housing, and just make sure that it's top of mind. So our amazing lobbying team got to work and started chatting with members of Congress and saying, hey, would you have any interest in this? And we were able to find 4 folks, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans from around the country to immediately start the real estate caucus. And now we're at, I think, 112 members in this caucus and counting. So it's been a great success. We've had members of the caucus speak at many of our events and co-sponsor each other's bills. And it really shows the bipartisan nature of what we are all doing in advocacy and what is happening on the ground with our members around the country. That our past president, Kevin Sears, always says, this isn't a red issue. This isn't a blue issue. This is a red, white, and blue issue. This impacts every American. And it's important that we are speaking across the aisle and again, across the Capitol, because working with the Senate, we have 1 senator who joined the real estate caucus. We'll work on more, but that's a big breakthrough because senators aren't exactly joiners on those kinds of things. And so making sure that we have those that interest and that passion, and that we can continue to feed them all kinds of great data and research from Dr. Lawrence Yoon and Dr. Jessica Lautz, and getting their staff and everyone engaged on these issues.
Right. And one of the places, and we've touched on it a little bit, is that you can hear all this information is the Advocacy Scoop. And I really enjoy listening to the Advocacy Scoop. I do also enjoy when you do it in person at some of the NAR meetings, but I have podcasts on my phone and I just listen to it in the car, and it's very informative. So you want to talk a little bit about that program you have?
Yes, thank you, Stephen. I'm contractually obligated to let you all know about the Advocacy Scoop podcast. Please get it wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you for those kind comments, Stephen. If you can just go and hit 5 stars. And
yeah, I've done it a few times.
Thank you. We know realtors are busy, and you don't have time to track all of the policy debates, and you don't even have time to go and read the Realtor Party newsletter that shows up in your inbox once a month, or to check the Washington Report or the Advocacy Impact.Realtor. That it's difficult sometimes to stay connected on your phone or on your laptop when you're on the road and you're busy. So Patrick Newton, my Advocacy Scoop co-host and the creator of the podcast, thought, let's go to realtors where you are, in the car, out running your errands, and when would you potentially have some downtime for 20 to 30 minutes of what is happening, quick digestible updates on what's happening in the world of advocacy, what's happening in DC. So we try to break down really complex issues into real world impact, and tell you what is coming up, and then also have some kind of evergreen content. So if you're kind of new to what's happening in NAR advocacy, you can go to the first 3 episodes and we'll tell you all about what advocacy does. What does our PAC do? How do political decisions, how are they made? What are those big advocacy wins over the last few decades that it's important to know? The 30-year fixed rate mortgage is something that has been continuously debated and reconsidered over the past, at least since the financial crisis, the past 20 years or so. And that's something that we've advocated to continue, and to make sure that that is a staple when it comes to first-time homeowners and folks being able to afford a home. So those are the types of issues that we get into. We have one episode that I would highly recommend listening to called Regulation Nation, how the real estate transaction is one of the highest taxed and most regulated financial transactions that anyone is going to make in their lifetime. And that is why advocacy is so important, because the government is involved in every step of the way. And it's a cost of business, and it is an important part of the consumer protection and the work that we're doing. So knowing where those regulations are and what we're doing to help support the real estate transaction happening is an important part of the business too.
And this is an election year, as you pointed out. It's not a presidential election year, but it's still every congressman's up for reelection. What is the involvement in your team, with RPAC in elections, and how can we at the local, state, national level all help?
Oh, sure. So I'll start with RPAC. So RPAC is one of the largest, most robust political action committees in the country. We have in previous elections like 98% success rate in finding those candidates who receive RPAC support and helping them get over the finish line. The decisions are made coming from the local and state level. So when a local or state association recommends support of their federal candidates, then RPAC takes that into consideration and then is able to determine at what level we can support these candidates. And it's been an incredible success. And with that 98% success rate, you're also seeing massive bipartisanship because we're supporting folks in the districts, elected officials and candidates who best represent their districts. And so you see a very diverse group, and you're seeing very politically balanced group of candidates who receive that support. But it doesn't just stop at RPAC. Stephen, as you mentioned, the state and local issues mobilization, but also independent expenditures where we can help support candidates at the state and local level as well. So every year feels like election year because we're so involved at all levels of government. But it's incredibly important when we're seeing these big elections that RPAC is there and that your voice is heard.
Yeah, and this year our congressman is Neil Dunn, who is not running for re-election. So that is an open seat. So that'll be a contested race that we'll be involved in. We've used the independent expenditures to get a mayor elected a couple of years ago, or maybe 4 years ago it was. So we've used that a few times successfully. So that is a great program too.
Mayor who's a former realtor, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, he is. He was a former realtor. Again, I don't know if he's going to be a realtor again because he's not running for anything. So I don't know if that's what he's going to do or what he's going to do. And then just lastly, I wanted you to touch on this pro property platform, which is an opportunity for not just realtors, not members of NAR, but anybody that's interested in private property rights, owning property, using property, to be involved.
Oh, absolutely. This is an incredibly unique and special program that only an organization of our size and scope could really put together. So the Pro Property Platform gives realtors, your clients, communities, it's open to the public, a way to directly support federal candidates who champion homeownership and private property rights. So there are many folks, if you're donating to a federal candidate, they'll have platforms called Act Blue or Win Red, and those are partisan platforms that are designed to put folks on that platform who represent that party. This is a bipartisan platform that focuses on those who support private property rights and champion homeownership. So it's very unique in that it is tagged with a clear message that if you're raising money through this platform, it's because your support for housing. It does not replace RPAC. RPAC is still the foundation. RPAC is still the tool that helps with those direct donations coming from RPAC. But this is a way, if you're looking at a federal candidate and saying, I think that this person deserves my support, you can give $10, you can give $15. It can be for low dollar, and that message can still be shared. President Circle is another fantastic program that starts at giving $500 to the candidate, so it's at a higher level. But we do have Senator Ashley Moody on President Circle right now, and I was honored to be able to interview her via hologram.
And that was interesting, Shannon. We need another show to talk about that hologram thing.
Yeah, I think we have some photos of it up on our socials. If not, I'll make sure that it is. But it was really cool. It's like you're making eye contact. It's kind of everyone said, "Oh, is this like Star Trek?" And I said, "More like Gem and the Holograms." But I'm aging myself there. So, but those are the President Circle is a program where we can find a smaller select group of federal candidates, and it's evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats who need that support. And with Senator Moody, who was appointed last year, is up for re-election this year, and then again in 2028. These are very expensive races to run statewide, and we are honored to call her a Realtor champion and to give her that support.
So she has to run because she was appointed by the governor. She has to run this time, but her term really is up in 2028. So
Yep,
she's got 2 elections very quickly.
and these races used to be a Senate race was in the tens of millions, a House race was in the single millions, and now you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in Senate races and tens of millions in House races. They become very expensive very quickly, and all the support that we can give makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, Shannon. I hope everybody has learned what I've been learning over the years, and certainly even learn more now, that you should be really proud of NAR's advocacy efforts. I mean, and it is your advocacy efforts. It's not the NAR staff's advocacy efforts. It's the members' advocacy efforts. I know that we are I guess all other political action committees and advocacies are jealous of the National Association of Realtors and the way they can pull together support and how they are truly a bipartisan support organization. But I want to thank you again, Shannon, for coming and talking to us. And I'll look forward to seeing you, well, for sure in DC, I guess in June.
Absolutely. We can't wait to see you. We have thousands of realtors in town for National Homeownership Month and our realtor legislative meetings. And it's a pleasure to be with you today, Stephen. Or next time, invite me to
come in person. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Shannon. All right. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.